A day at the range. The pickup lurched along the lengthy, pebbled drive, each rock a tiny tremor through Lily. "Grandpa, are you positive I'm up for this?" she murmured, her question nearly swallowed by the engine's deep thrum. Chen chuckled, wrinkles fanning from his kind eyes. "Ready?" "Lily Bug, you've been wielding that broom like Annie Oakley for weeks. You're better than ready." He patted her hand. "Remember, it's about respecting the tool, not just squeezing off rounds." Lily worried her lip, gaze fixed on the horizon. The shooting range materialized, a squat concrete blockhouse girded by chain link. Even at this distance, she picked up the sharp reports of firearms. A knot tightened in her stomach. She fired off a string of worried questions. What if I freeze? What if I can't even nick the paper? What if I make a fool of myself? He listened with practiced patience, interjecting only with a soothing, "We'll go at your pace," or, "Nerves are natural," or, "A little embarrassment builds character." As they settled into a parking space, Lily drew a long breath, attempting to mirror her grandfather's calm. The air carried a tang of burnt powder and raw metal, an aroma both repulsive and strangely alluring. Inside, the din was overwhelming. Sharp cracks, dull booms, the reports of various weapons bounced off the walls, punctuated by the ping of struck steel. Lily recoiled slightly, her eyes widening. People stood in partitioned lanes, faces hidden behind protective lenses and muffs, laser-focused on distant targets. Some were grizzled men, their expressions grim, others younger and more relaxed. A sudden wave of inadequacy washed over Lily. She felt diminutive and green in this arena of controlled explosions. Chen guided her to the registration counter. A thick-set man sporting a handlebar mustache and a worn "Gun Owners of America" T-shirt stood behind it. He looked up as they approached, his gaze instantly scrutinizing. "Afternoon, Johnson," Chen greeted him, his voice even and courteous. "Chen," the man responded, his voice a low growl. He offered no smile, but a spark of recognition flickered in his eyes. "Bringing in a rookie? This is my granddaughter, Lily. Her first time on the range." Johnson's gaze shifted to Lily, dissecting her. She tried to hold his stare, but her apprehension made it a struggle. He seemed to peer right through her, cataloging every flaw. "She know the drill?" he asked, his tone clipped. "We've covered the basics," Chen confirmed, with a nod. "But a refresher would be appreciated, just to be sure." Johnson grunted, sliding a waiver across the counter. "Sign here. And make sure she reads the safety regs. Zero tolerance for carelessness here." Lily quickly perused the form, her hand trembling faintly as she scrawled her signature. The man's gruff manner amplified her unease, but also kindled a small flame of defiance within her. She wouldn't let him get to her. She would demonstrate her competence and responsibility. Johnson watched her, his expression inscrutable. "All right," he conceded finally. "Let's get you fixed up with eye and ear protection. And Chen, keep a hawk's eye on her. I don't want any incidents." He gestured toward a wall laden with safety equipment. "First bay on the left is clear." Laughter and taunts. The scent of Hoppa's number 9 and gun oil hung thick in the air as Lily followed Grandpa Chen toward the rifle range. Sunlight glinted off the barrels of the rifles racked along the far wall. Her stomach twisted with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. A burst of raucous laughter erupted from a group of teenagers clustered near the firing line. Lily instinctively shrunk behind Grandpa Chen. Well, what have we here?" a voice boomed. A hulking boy with a sneer plastered across his face swaggered forward, two equally unpleasant-looking companions flanking him. This was Butch, the bane of the gun range. Butch's eyes raked over Lily, lingering on her small frame. "Looks like someone's playing dress-up with Grandpa's toys." He chuckled, and his cronies joined in, the sound echoing mockingly under the tin roof. Lily gripped the strap of her rifle case tighter, her knuckles white. She tried to meet Butch's gaze, but his sheer size and the undisguised contempt in his eyes made her falter. "That little thing even big enough to hold that rifle steady," one of Butch's friends snickered, pointing at the .22 slung over Lily's shoulder. "She'll probably blow herself backwards with the recoil," Butch added, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe Grandpa should get her a slingshot instead." More laughter. Grandpa Chen's expression remained serene, but a subtle hardening of his jaw betrayed his displeasure. He placed a hand gently on Lily's shoulder. "Pay them no mind, Lily Bug." His voice was low and steady, a calming balm against the sting of their taunts. "Focus on the target." But Lily couldn't help but hear them. Their words, sharp and cruel, burrowed into her mind, amplifying her own insecurities. Was she too small? Too inexperienced? Doubt gnawed at her confidence. She imagined the rifle kicking back, knocking her off balance, the laughter echoing around her. She tried to block them out, focusing on Grandpa Chen's instructions, on the feel of the smooth wood stock against her cheek. But the image of Butch's mocking face kept flashing in her mind. She felt her hands tremble as she loaded the magazine. The metallic click sounded deafeningly loud in the sudden silence that had fallen over the group. They watched her, their eyes like chips of ice. First shots. Lily swallowed, the metallic tang of fear coating her tongue. The rifle felt impossibly heavy in her small hands. Grandpa Chen stood beside her, a silent, stoic presence, his disapproval radiating like heat from a forge. She adjusted her stance, mimicking his earlier instructions, but her legs felt like jelly, her arms like lead. The scent of gunpowder, usually exciting, now choked her. "Ready, Lily?" Grandpa Chen asked, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. She nodded, though her stomach churned. Taking a deep breath, she sighted down the barrel. The target, a simple paper silhouette, seemed miles away. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Bang! The rifle bucked against her shoulder, a sharp, painful jolt. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, momentarily blinded by the flash. When she dared to open them, she saw Grandpa Chen shaking his head. "Check the target," he said, his tone flat. Lily trudged downrange, her heart sinking with each step. The target was untouched. Not a single hole marred its pristine surface. Her shot hadn't even hit the paper. A wave of shame washed over her. Back at the firing line, she tried again. And again. Each shot was a disaster. One kicked up dirt far to the left. Another sailed high, clipping the wooden frame above the target. The third, well, she wasn't even sure where the third went. It was lost somewhere in the vast expanse of the desert landscape. With each miss, the laughter from Butch and his cronies grew louder, more mocking. It echoed around her, bouncing off the metal walls of the range, amplifying her humiliation. She could feel her cheeks burning. The rifle felt heavier, more unwieldy. Her grip tightened, her knuckles white. "Relax your shoulders, Lily," Grandpa Chen instructed, his voice tight. "You're anticipating the recoil." Easier said than done. How could she relax when she felt like a spectacle, a complete failure? She tried to remember his earlier teachings, steady breathing, focus, controlled movements. But the jeering laughter, the weight of the rifle, the disappointment in her grandfather's eyes, it all conspired against her. She fired again. Another miss. This time, the bullet ricocheted off the metal frame holding the target, whining off into the distance with a dangerous, angry buzz. Butch's laughter exploded. "Hey, Granny. Maybe knitting needles are more your style." Lily flinched. Her vision blurred. She wanted to run, to disappear. The thrill she had felt earlier, the excitement of learning something new, was gone, replaced by a crushing wave of inadequacy. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She lowered the rifle, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold it. "That's enough," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't." A warning. The air tasted of acrid smoke and iron, a harsh cocktail left by discharged rounds. Lily's vision blurred slightly as she jammed another cartridge into the magazine, fighting the involuntary tremor in her fingers. The target board resembled abstract art, badly executed. Beside her, Grandpa Chen stood like a stoic monument, his silence a palpable rebuke that amplified her insecurity. A crunch of boots on the gravel path made her jump. She braced herself for criticism. Mr. Johnson, the range master, a man whose face was a roadmap of wrinkles and sun damage, halted nearby, his eyes assessing the tattered paper in the distance. His words were sparse, yet authoritative. "Chen," he stated, his voice a resonant baritone that vibrated through the ground beneath her feet. "Your body position is incorrect. You're anticipating the shot. And that trigger pull, it lacks finesse." Lily's mouth went dry. "I am doing my best, sir." A grunt was his only reply. "Best isn't sufficient. This concerns safety, not recreation. Yours, and others." He indicated the distant targets, their crimson centers now feeling like a taunt. "A week has passed, and I see scant improvement. A marked change must occur within days, or your participation will cease." His pronouncement landed like a gut punch. "Stop. The hours of practice, the raw blisters, the aching muscles, all for naught." She risked a glance at her grandfather, who remained an unreadable statue, his eyes fixed ahead. "No solace there." "Understood, Mr. Johnson," she managed, her voice thin. He gave a curt nod. "Good. Expect progress. Safety takes precedence. Ensure you meet my expectations." With a final grinding of gravel, he departed, leaving her stranded with her growing unease and the lingering scent of propellant. His ultimatum hung in the air. She needed to be better. How, though? Doubt, like an insidious parasite, began to feed on her resolve. She regarded the pistol, the cold metal now feeling foreign and unwieldy. The target seemed impossibly far away, the bullseye afar off, impossible objective. The pressure was a tangible weight, constricting her chest. The prospect of confessing her failure to her grandfather sent a wave of shame washing over her. Raising the pistol once more, she found her hands were quaking so violently that the sights swam before her eyes. Grandpa's secret. The acrid bite of burnt powder lingered, a harsh testament to Lily's repeated failures. She sagged against the splintered bench, crushed by the weight of her inadequacy. The other marksmen, their faces etched with experience, their stances honed by countless hours, paid her no mind, their attention riveted to the paper targets dancing in the distance. Grandpa Chen, who had been a silent sentinel, his expression unreadable, finally moved. He gestured for her to join him by the ammunition lockers, a secluded corner of the range. "Come," he said, his voice a gravelly rasp. Lily obeyed, her spirits plummeting. She braced herself for criticism, a sharp reminder of her shortcomings. Instead, he faced her squarely, his gaze piercing. "You possess strength, Lily. More than you realize." The unexpected affirmation surprised her. "But I'm awful," she mumbled, avoiding his eyes. He placed a weathered hand on her shoulder, the grip surprisingly gentle. "Awful now," he countered. "But that is not your destiny. Recall your first attempts at calligraphy. Your lines wavered, the ink bled. Did you surrender then?" She shook her head, recalling the countless hours of dedication, the vexation, balanced by the subtle joy as her characters gradually materialized with artistry. "Shooting mirrors calligraphy," Grandpa Chen instructed. "Discipline. Focus. Patience. Yet, it also requires breath." He paused, lost in thought, as if retrieving a distant recollection. "In the military," he continued, his voice barely audible, "we mastered a technique. Nearly a secret. It sustained us in the chaos of combat, preserved our poise when surrounded by mayhem." He straightened, his posture rigid, a fleeting echo of the soldier he once embodied. Inhale deeply, he commanded, through your nostrils. Sense the air expand your lungs, fill your core. Sustain, briefly. Then, release it gradually, deliberately, from your mouth. Visualize all the stress, every doubt, expelled with each exhalation. Lily closed her eyes, following his guidance. The air touched her skin, cool and infused with the fragrance of pine from the neighboring woods. She centered on the rise and fall of her chest, the slow yielding and tightening of her lungs. The rhythmic breathing began to soothe the storm within her mind. The key, Grandpa Chen murmured, his voice a deep rumble, is to discover tranquility amidst the turmoil. Master your breath, and you command your thoughts. Command your thoughts, and you master your shot. He stepped back, his gaze unwavering and intense. Try again, Lily. Remember the breath is your ally. A spark of hope flickered within her. Not a miraculous fix, not a sudden solution to her deficiencies, but something tangible. A resource. A different approach. She inhaled deeply once more, detecting a sliver of conviction blossoming within her. Perhaps, she wasn't as irredeemable as she'd believed. Maybe Grandpa Chen's secret was the compass she needed to find her way. Focus and breath. The jeers stung, each syllable a tiny, poison dart. Lily felt her face burn, a blush that threatened to erupt into tears. Butterfingers, someone yelled. Another voice, mimicking her tentative grip on the rifle, piped up, look at her, she's gonna drop it. Grandpa Chen's words, spoken just moments before, echoed in her mind, find your center, Lilybug. The gun is an extension of your will. Let your breath guide you. She closed her eyes. The laughter faded, replaced by the rhythmic whoosh of her own breathing. Inhale. Exhale. She focused on the coolness of the air entering her nostrils, the gentle expansion of her chest. Again. Deeper this time. The world shrunk, the cacophony of the gun range dissolving into a muted hum. Lily slowly opened her eyes, the target a blurry circle at the end of the range. Grandpa Chen's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a silent anchor. She shifted her weight, her feet planted firmly on the cracked concrete. Her left foot, he had said, should be slightly forward, providing balance. She nudged it a fraction, feeling the subtle shift in her center of gravity. Better. The rifle felt heavy, alien in her hands. She adjusted her grip, mimicking the way Grandpa Chen held his, loose but firm. Her right hand cradled the stock, her index finger resting lightly on the trigger. Not yet. Patience. The laughter started again, louder this time, emboldened by her stillness. But Lily was no longer listening. She was a tunnel, her vision narrowed to the black bullseye in the center of the target. The world outside that circle ceased to exist. She raised the rifle, the metal cool against her cheek. Her breath hitched. She remembered Grandpa Chen's words, don't fight the breath, Lilybug. Let it flow. Squeeze, don't pull. The target swam into focus, then blurred, then sharpened again. She was swaying, imperceptibly, a tiny dance of muscle and bone. She fought the urge to tighten her grip, to force the rifle to stay still. Instead, she took another breath, slow and deliberate, and waited for the moment of stillness. There. A pocket of calm, a fleeting sense of perfect equilibrium. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The shot. The air hung thick and heavy, smelling of burnt powder and anticipation. Lily ignored the low hum of conversation from the other shooters. Today, the world narrowed to the paper target 20 yards away. A red bullseye stared back, an unblinking eye daring her to try. She raised her pistol, the familiar weight a comfort against the tremor in her hands. This time, she wouldn't rush. Lily inhaled, a long, slow breath, feeling the air fill her lungs, grounding her. She exhaled, letting go of the doubts that usually plagued her mind, the snickers she imagined, the barely concealed impatience of some of the other patrons. Instead, she pictured the diagram Mr. Johnson had shown her, the one illustrating perfect form, the triangle of support formed by her arms, the steady pressure on the trigger. She lined up the sights, the front post a crisp black against the blurry target. Another breath. Squeeze, don't pull. The first shot surprised her with its smoothness. No jerky flinch, no wild bucking of the gun. Just a clean crack and a puff of air as the bullet found its mark. She didn't dare look. Not yet. Again. Breath. Align. Squeeze. Crack. And again. This time, a rhythm developed, a dance between her body, the gun, and the target. Each shot felt deliberate, controlled, a small act of defiance against the insecurity that usually consumed her. She wasn't thinking about failing anymore, about the disappointed looks or muttered criticisms. She was simply doing. Crack. 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 The smell of gunpowder filled her nostrils, acrid and sharp, but today it smelled like progress. Like something earned. Her arms started to ache, a dull burn that she welcomed. It was a physical reminder of the effort she was expending, the focus she was maintaining. She fired the last few rounds, the magazine emptying with a satisfying click. For a moment, she stood frozen, the pistol still raised, unwilling to break the spell. A strange calm had settled over her, a quiet confidence she hadn't felt before. It wasn't arrogance, but something deeper, a nascent belief in her own potential. Slowly, she lowered the gun, placing it carefully on the table. Only then did she allow herself to look. Silence. The report of the rifle dissipated, leaving behind a disquieting hush. Not an absence of sound, but a palpable, expectant stillness that draped itself over the firing line. Lily eased the rifle down, the vibration still humming against her cheek. Ordinarily, the air vibrated with taunts and hearty camaraderie after a volley, but now, absolute quiet. She dared to glance at her target. The distance obscured the detail, making the perforations indistinct. Yet, that oppressive quiet, it spoke volumes. Butch and his cronies, moments ago a chorus of snickers, were petrified, their mirth choked off mid-guffaw. The crimson flush of mockery faded from their faces, replaced by baffled, almost dumbfounded expressions. One jabbed a finger at Butch, wordlessly indicating something downrange. A frantic drumbeat hammered within Lily's chest. Could she have missed so badly? Violated some unwritten rule of the range? The silence stretched, bordering on excruciating. Even Mr. Johnson, whose voice usually boomed with directives and critiques from his elevated platform, held his tongue. She watched him crane forward, eyes narrowed. Then, astonishingly, he rose to his feet, a rare event, and began to descend towards the targets, his pace quickening noticeably. Behind her, Lily's grandfather offered a subtle nod, wrinkles deepening around his eyes. He remained silent, yet his presence was a steadfast reassurance in the swelling tide of uncertainty. Mr. Johnson reached the target. He didn't touch it, offered no pronouncements. He merely fixed it with a stare. The set of his shoulders, usually squared with authority, seemed to soften, ever so slightly. Lily noticed the back of his neck growing ruddy. At long last, he emitted a low whistle. The sound, muted as it was, seemed to shatter the tension. A wave of murmurs rippled through the range, hushed and incredulous. Lily's throat constricted, her mouth suddenly parched. She still struggled to discern details, but she could sense the subtle alteration in the air. The animosity, the gleeful anticipation of her failure, had vanished, supplanted by something akin to stunned disbelief mingled with reluctant admiration. Mr. Johnson finally pivoted, his gaze wide with astonishment. He approached her slowly, deliberately, as one might approach a skittish animal. "Chen," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle. Did you even use the sights?" Lily blinked, taken aback by the almost accusatory tone. "Yes, sir," she mumbled, her voice a mere thread. He halted a few feet away, shaking his head in disbelief. "Well, I'll be damned. He seemed genuinely at a loss. He cleared his throat, regaining some composure. You need to see this. He indicated the target with a broad gesture. Lily hesitated for only a moment, then took a tentative step forward. As she drew closer, the separate holes resolved themselves into a single, jagged blossom, scarcely larger than a dime, precisely centered in the bullseye. 5 shots. 5 impacts, practically superimposed. The silence returned, but of a profoundly different nature this time. It was the silence of pure, unadulterated awe. Respect. The trek to the target felt interminable. Lily's gaze remained fixed on the ground, the crunch of loose stone a rhythmic counterpoint to her anxiety. She chanced a peek at her grandfather, his expression remained an inscrutable mask. Mr. Johnson stood before the target, a solid figure blocking her view of the paper until a low whistle of surprise escaped him. Stepping aside, he revealed Lily's handiwork. A quintet of shots, nestled so close they threatened to overlap. The resulting perforation resembled a single, brutal wound. It was remarkable. Near flawless. A jolt of elation, unexpected and potent, coursed through her veins. Mr. Johnson ambled around the target, muttering, "I'll be damned." Turning, his usual bluntness softened by genuine astonishment, he beckoned. "Come on over. Let's look at that hold again." Lily approached, her pulse quickening. He subtly adjusted her posture, his touch light as he corrected her elbow's angle. "There, see? You were tilting the rifle just a fraction. Makes all the difference at this distance. Didn't expect that, to be honest. Never seen a grouping like that from a newcomer." He actually sounded impressed. The other marksmen, a trio of stout men clad in tactical gear, had grown silent, their own attempts momentarily forgotten. They regarded Lily's target, then Lily herself, a mixture of incredulity and reluctant admiration etched on their faces. "Keep that grip firm, control your breathing, and gently squeeze the trigger, avoid yanking it," Mr. Johnson coached, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You have a natural gift. Don't let it go to waste." He gave her shoulder a light pat, a surprisingly paternal gesture. A shaky, "thank you," was all Lily could manage, the words feeling insufficient. Mr. Johnson simply nodded. As they headed back to the truck, the sunset splashed the heavens with vibrant shades of apricot and lavender. A lightness filled Lily, a sensation long absent. She met her grandfather's gaze. He offered a subtle smile, barely a twitch of his lips. It spoke volumes. A silent recognition, a shared victory. The scent of dust and spent gunpowder hung in the air, oddly comforting. Glancing back at the range, she saw the deepening shadows stretch across the deserted firing lines. Today, she had earned more than just a precise cluster of shots. She had earned recognition. And perhaps, just perhaps, she had earned a measure of self-respect.